Department of Community Development. We are here because the board adopted a moratorium on July 1st, a 6-month moratorium on any new, accepting any new building land use permitting activities related to the production and processing of marijuana in all zoning districts with the exception of agricultural resource lands and industrial zone districts. The RCW requires that when you establish a moratorium that you have to have a public hearing on it. If you don't have it at that time, you must have it within 60 days. So this is the hearing that we're having within our 60 days. Let's see here. So the moratorium was placed, like I said, on all zoning districts with the exception of industrial lands and agricultural lands. To give some clarification, agricultural lands are not a zoning district. They are a resource designation. When the original code was adopted, adding, I think, 17.17 that allows recreational marijuana production, processing, and retail, the resource lands were not a part of it. It was just the zoning districts, and it was not intentionally left out. It was more or less kind of not included because we're not used to, regulating that the same as we do with zoning. So when permits came in for anything that was in it was in agricultural or in holding or long-term commercial forest, we processed it according to the resource ordinance. So they were kind of left separate, and we processed them as they came in. The rest of them, if they fell within an eligible zoning district, they were processed that way. Because the moratorium pulled in ag lands and industrial lands, we kind of had to put the kibosh on everything. So now part of the discussion that we need to have is whether to bring resource lands back into the conversation, and it's probably appropriate that we address them anyhow because they weren't addressed to begin with, on whether we're going to continue to allow this type of activity in the long-term commercial forest, the ag lands, the holding. I think that's about it that it would qualify for. So in preparation for this hearing, I did put together a staff report for the board, kind of going over the current regulations that we have, the moratorium that's now in place. I also discussed in part the whole idea of vesting in our applications and what that means for people that have submitted applications that we currently have within the Department of Community Development. A vested application is one that has been received and been considered complete, and once it's considered complete, it is vested under state law, and the moratorium does not affect it. It will continue to process through. As of July 1st, though, anybody that wanted to turn in a permit that was not in industrial or ag were not accepted. I went through and provided the commissioners with a little bit of discussion about the zoning districts that 17.17 currently allows for these types of uses, with a little bit of an explanation of what type of land uses are allowed inside the zoning districts and whether or not these types of new businesses or these new operations would be compatible with other businesses that are currently allowed in those zoning districts. And that, of course, it talks about all the rural residential districts, the rural commercials, 2, 3, 4, and 5, rural industrial, rural natural resource, and then the individual urban growth area designations, which are all, of course, a little bit different. And they are not allowed in the residential areas within the UGAs, but in their mixed use, their general commercial, and their industrial. I also provided a little bit of discussion about resource lands and how those designations are different and what that means. I believe that the regulations that are in place for resource lands are sufficient to protect them. If you were to put in these types of businesses, I think that the regulations that are there are going to protect that resource enough to continue to allow that type of business and not necessarily impact the commercial forest or the agriculture that is already there, because the resource ordinance is pretty specific and pretty restrictive to protect that resource. And those lands are required to be designated under the Growth and Management Act. So some of the other discussion that I included in here was that the similarity of these types of uses within some of the commercial zones. They do allow for some small scale hobby farms, small scale commercial farms are allowed in some of your residential areas. And then you've got commercial areas that do allow some residents, which you can show residents in some of these. So they kind of cross over that. You have that flexibility. I also kind of went through the zoning districts, and I put together a table, and I don't know, I think that this staff report was probably available online. And all I did was, as I read through the zoning districts that currently allow it, and I illustrated whether it permits residential use, whether it permits commercial use, whether it permits collective gardens, because I think it's important to consider whether you're already allowing some sort of marijuana uses in that area. The FAR, which is the floor area ratio, how big of a building you can put in that area based on the acreage, and then building size limitations so that the commissioners could have some sort of idea based on if you're going to put something in there, how big it can actually be. And then I kind of put in my own recommendations, considering that most of the jurisdictions, or most of the districts that already allow the production and processing are fairly similar with other uses that are already allowed in that zoning district, possibly with the exception of the rural residential district, which seems to be where the kind of the crux of the issues is coming from right now. My suggestion at the time of the staff report was that perhaps the commissioners would consider lifting the moratorium or revising it to just include residential areas, and perhaps asking the planning commission to kind of go back and look at those areas instead of everything. You kind of let the rest of it go and just include the residential. We've had some briefing discussions since the staff report was put together. So what I have done as a result of that is proposed an ordinance for the board to consider today that would basically amend the ordinance that you signed on July 1st. It would repeal the moratorium and direct the planning commission to make recommendations within 90 days to revisit rural residential districts and ask them to consider 4 items that came up for discussion. Now, this isn't putting these items into place, but it's asking the planning commission to kind of throw them out there, get some public testimony, and see how these would fit. One of the suggestions that were to consider for the rural residential would be to increase the buffers between the operations and neighborhood residential dwelling units from 100 feet to 250 feet. To limit rural residential 5 districts to allow only Tier 1 level operations. Limit Tier 2 and Tier 3 level operations in rural residential districts to parcels that are 10 or more acres in size. And to limit the allowance of producers and processors in residential areas based on housing densities for the adjacent properties, meaning getting more of a case-by-case view on exactly how developed that residential area is and take that into consideration before perhaps permitting that type of operation. So this basically would repeal, this ordinance would repeal what you've done. It would lift the moratorium, which would lift it completely. Everything would go back into place, but it would direct the planning commission to within 90 days come back with some suggestions and recommendations to amend the residential portions of which you adopted.
I think we better. Good job. I think we better. Not sure if I might say, and that's up to you. I guess if you want to say it. But I think we have to start out on a good foot without applause and cheering, because it will disrupt this hearing. It will not proceed in a very orderly manner. Let's just try not to applaud or express pleasure or displeasure with anything that's said. Please.
Very much. I I concur. It'd be nice to just have this nice and orderly. Are there any questions for Barbara?
I have one, Madam Chair. So I see this proposed ordinance in my book. This is the first time I've seen it.
Yes.
Has the public had a chance to read it?
No. It was drafted between yesterday morning and
Okay, I didn't know that this was being drafted as a request of other commissioners.
If I can discuss.
Okay.
So you were, I apologize that you have not seen this. Commissioner Netherland and I, when we were in briefing yesterday, had this discussion. Unfortunately, we were not able to attend. And this was an open public meeting. It was with the community development. And we had discussed some of the options available to us. And so, you know, in our discussions. And so Barbara drafted this just to kind of capture some of the discussion we have had. Is a decision made? No. That's obviously up to us at the end of the testimony. But she was capturing the information and the discussion we have had. Commissioner Nevin, did you have that?
Yes, it was scheduled, it was on the agenda, it was scheduled to meet with them. You know, no disrespect, you chose a different meeting that you found to be more important than that.
Well, I wouldn't put words in my mouth. I had not or assigned any motives to me, but I had not seen it yet. And that's my why I wanted to raise that issue.
Are there any questions from the audience?
They
You
can't
guys
hear
are
us.
getting feedback out here and nobody
Put
can
your
hear.
hand over that phone.
If something's sitting by the microphone, we're getting feedback back here.
We didn't hear the last 5 minutes.
Put your hand over that one, please.
Let it go up there.
Can we turn it down? Because that's got to be driving me nuts out there.
You might want to turn the volume down out there.
Yeah, there's a TV. Can somebody out there please turn the TV down a touch?
There you go.
Thank you.
Oh, turn it up so they can hear better.
Question? In the recommendations that you put together, trying to limit tier 2s to 10 or more acres, have you taken into consideration the cost involved with building out tier 2 and tier 3 facilities, especially if they're going to be greenhouses or indoor? The problem is that when you have such a small canopy, we're talking 2,001 to 10,000 square feet of canopy that are allowed. If you require 10 acres for that tiny little property, you're pricing yourself out.
We need to make sure these are questions and not testimony.
Right, so, have you considered that?
Yeah,
And do you understand the size limitations of a tier 2 and a tier 3 of how much land that actually takes up?
And I want to reiterate that we are not changing the code. This is not a hearing to change the code. The only thing this is a hearing on is on the moratorium, whether it's lifted or not. What you're hearing is recommendations that will be sent back to go to a planning commission if this happens. And then it will go through the process that it's supposed to go through whenever there's a change in the code. It's supposed to go to them first, and then a public hearing, then to us and a public hearing, and then a decision is made on changing the code. This is only on the moratorium.
Any other questions? Yes.
How many vested applications do you currently have?
Less than 10. I don't have those in front of me.
So that's vested with the county, vested with the state, or vested with the county?
You didn't specify. You said vested, once it's complete, it's vested, you said with the state. And that those are not impacted by the moratorium, as I understood.
The applications that they submitted, 10, 11, it looks like I have 11. Only the applications that they have submitted are vested. They cannot submit any more applications.
Right, but those 11 presumably could go ahead regardless of the
Stuff is in it, will go
moratorium.
through, yes.
They're vested under the old law,
Right,
the old code.
thank you.
Any other questions? Sir.
If this went through, there's a potential that in 90 days there could be another change. Would the same vesting rules probably apply to people who were in process or already had their application in? Because it's unlikely they'd have time to have things completed in 90 days.
anything that was submitted within that 90-day window before the regulations came before them to be changed, if they are changed to anybody before that change could be vested if their application is complete.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've spent quite a bit of time looking on your permitting maps. I spend quite a bit of time at your planning area. You guys don't have any agriculture. Seriously, I mean, you guys are talking about this agriculture,
That's not a
but
question.
no. So my question is, you're saying that now we need to bring in the conversation for agriculture. Is there more land being added into this?
No, agriculture is a resource land, and it is out there. It is designated in a different way than necessarily zoning is designated. And it exists. It's not as easy to find or purchase, obviously, but it does exist. And we do have at least one person that's vested on ag lands.
Oh.
And that's not the same as the rule 5, 10, and 20?
Right.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify. Thank you.
One of those complicated things, designations versus zoning.
Yeah.
So what is the tier 1 and tier 2? I don't understand what that is.
So basically, did you want to talk about that?
Those are designations by the state as far as the I'm more expensive than me, but your canopy size. Tier 1 canopy size, and that's would be less than 2,000 square feet. 2,000 to 10,000 is tier 2, and 10,000 to 30,000 is tier 3. And that's a state designation. That's canopy square footage.
Meaning
For plant coverage.
the plant coverage. Question.
So say the moratorium lifts and everything goes back to the way it was. What is in place to ensure that more mistakes aren't made in the process as you guys figure out how best to zone for this or how to allocate it better? With the way that things move so fast in the county with these operations going up and with other counties putting such restrictions on things that kind of slow the process down, Mason County not being one of those counties that has those restrictions, what is in place if the moratorium lifts to just kind of better look at all the consequentials of it? Would there be anything to kind of slow the process down? Not stop the process, but just slow it down so that you can give more careful consideration to how these go forward? Essentially, if it's such a cash crop, which I'm sure there's potential of it, what's the rush? It's not going anywhere, so why can't we take time to just look at it a little more carefully, maybe give some more consideration to road standards, water issues, things.
Nicole, you're getting really close to a testimony, and I thank you for the consideration that you're asking for us, and what you're asking for us is to make a statement around a decision we haven't even made.
Okay.
And so I appreciate that.
Sure.
But
I guess, may I ask one quick question, and it relates to yours. If this moratorium is lifted, does that open the floodgates until we come back to this place again where this is all discussed?
it means there's a 90-day window.
For more of them to proceed?
There's a 90-day window for those who have their application into this group of people.
So that's different, sure.
Yeah, but we're not talking, it opens it back up because there's a process that has to occur, but it opens it back up to some of it. The idea that we have out there that it's open to residential is just not exactly accurate. There's all kinds of restrictions that keep it out of a majority of truly residential land. The question that becomes is, well, does it open back up for 5 acres, 10 acres, 20 acre parcels? And remembering that in this county, everything is residential. You saw this map on the commercial timber. You remove that designation, what does it have? It has RR5 designations underneath it, because that's how we do everything in this county. Everything is considered rural residential. Now the question is that residential? At some point, it has to go through a planning commission, and then back to the commission on a public hearing to talk about, is that 5 acres considered residential? 5 acres is 220,000 square feet. If they come back with allowing 2,000 square foot canopy on 220,000 square feet, is that realistic? that has to be the question that's brought back to the planning commission because there's a process and to hear. But it doesn't, by lifting this thing, it's not the Wild West. There's a whole list of laws and rules already in place to restrict it going in anything under 5 acres, for example, which, as you'll see, you know, a lot of our properties are quarter acres, 3/4 of an acre, and stuff like that. So there's still restrictions that are in place, and it's not just law.
Any other questions? So what you're saying is they could put it on a 5-acre parcel resident, correct?
Well, everything, almost everything is 5-acre parcel is residential. It's just, it's only all residential.
But they can put their grow operations in, correct?
5 acres or more.
5 acres or more. And so how do we go about keeping it from being 5 acres or less?
The planning commission will be hearing it, and you'll have a chance to testify, like we had before. We had a planning commission, we had public hearings, and you'll be given the opportunity to attend and talk to the planning commission. They'll make their recommendations, and we'll have another hearing here, just as we did before. We had 5 total hearings, opportunities for people to come and testify. You'll have another opportunity to do it here, as we look to do and perhaps change the zoning according to the law, the way it's supposed to be changed.
So I have a question.
Yes.
I want to get this right. I'm looking back at the schedule. So yesterday I got here about 8 o'clock, and we had several briefings in the morning until about, I think I left at just before 10 o'clock for a meeting at the Squaxin Island Tribe. I came back and had afternoon briefings that started at 1:45. I was here, and I was here through about 4 o'clock, I think we quit. So that's about 5 hours. And because I missed an hour of the briefings, now I'm seeing an ordinance amending the original ordinance and repealing the moratorium, and this is the first time I've had a look at it, and the public has not been allowed to see it. Is that correct? Thank you.
Is that much different than the 17-hour window we gave when we created the moratorium? I'm just curious. I'm just,
Good point.
Is that the process question?
So, ladies and gentlemen, are there any more questions that are truly questions so we can get to the testimony? Sir?
Madam Chair, quick question on the canopy size. Are we talking as a canopy size per plant, or as if it's on a tier, it's actually a footprint?
No.
So we could have one width with 3 tier high
Per building.
per plant?
Building.
Total plan.
Okay, we're talking square areas.
Square
So
footage.
if I had a, it's based on the canopy size of the plant, correct?
Of all the plants,
Okay,
can be
so,
no
so
more.
a building could be a narrow building but tall, or it could be a small building but wide, as long as it encompasses the square footage of these number of plants. Is this correct?
I would assume that's a liquor
Again,
control
think of a
board question.
Costco where you're stacking your racks, you can put a lot of product in a small area, as opposed to a regular retail where you have to put it over a larger area. So it's based on canopy size per plant.
Stacking creates each
Total
plant.
canopy
But
size.
there's
Either way,
another
per
issue.
plant.
Yeah, there's another
Total
issue.
canopy
So
size.
we're critical parallel.
In the back.
In all this discussion, has there ever been an environmental impact statement or study done? The plant out on Sells Drive put in a huge well. Are they going to use all that water in the growing process, or is there going to be a runoff?
It's an exempt well, and they're allowed, it's 55,000 square foot. Oh, you're asking. Is there environmental impact statement
Yeah,
done
has
on
there any
on
study
of
been
these?
done to tell us what happens around one of these things? Is there any impact on the neighboring properties from runoff or anything of that sort?
I can tell you right now, I just got done reading, I'm trying to find it now. Somebody gave it to me, and I just read the restrictions on the containment of the water that they use, that they have to keep it contained. Liquids and solids, solid and liquid waste generated during marijuana production and processing must be stored, managed, and disposed of in accordance with applicable state and local laws and regulations. Wastewater generated, number 2, wastewater generated during marijuana production and processing must be disposed of in compliance with applicable state and local laws and regulations. Waste and the production and processing marijuana plants are evaluated against state. Same thing, there's a whole list of stuff that they have to comply with. It's not, those aren't ours, that's the state.
Well, who enforces the compliance?
The state.
State.
Liquor Control Board, that's the
Code
state.
enforcement.
It's
recorded 24/7
with
cameras.
I have a process question. Because
They have to be removed and
excuse me, because the issues are kind of swirling around the 5-acre rural residential, has any consideration been given to, instead of repealing a moratorium, adopting the proposal that you're going to consider over the next 90 days as an interim moratorium while we look at some of these other issues, instead of opening the floodgates so other residential neighborhoods are impacted the same way that ours is currently being impacted? So you take out the broad-reaching moratorium and put in place a narrower, more direct moratorium that allows production facilities elsewhere in the county, except for in these RR 5, 10, and 20 neighborhoods that seem to be the biggest issue. Has that been considered instead of going the other route?
So we're not going to create code here. We are not, we have the process of going through the planning commission and the public hearing process, and so no, I think what you're suggesting is that we adopt a code here tonight, and we chose not to do that, and we actually cannot do it. It's not the proper process.
Actually, Madam Chair, I would recommend that you revise the moratorium.
Okay, then you need to do that at the testimony time, please. Ladies and gentlemen, if the questions don't stay at questions, I'm going to have to just stop them. And so I think what we need to do, maybe 2 more questions, and then we will go into testimony. So,
just a point of information, the Liquor Control Board has reduced the maximum capacity for Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 to 70% of the maximum. So 2,000 times 7%, 10,000 times 7%, 30,000 times 7%. So Tier 3 would have about, give or take, 21,000 square feet of canopy space.
And that's what I understand, but I want to make it clear, we're not testifying to that to the public. That's not, that may be accurate, but that's not what we're testifying to the public. We'll only testify to what we have in front of what we know.
Madam Chair, I think, just make an observation. I've been to a lot of public hearings. I've been to over 500 county commission meetings. I think what we're going to do here very soon is just end up with a stream of consciousness. You have to have a process of people that ask questions. Other people don't talk in the background. Other people are speaking without being recognized. I think we're going to create an atmosphere here that is not conducive to good public policy. Thank you.
one more question, and I'm going to ask somebody who hasn't had it. Yeah.
I just want to be clear on the way what Barbara spoke on in the resolution. If you were, what you're proposing now, in the next 90 days, that seems to be looking at changing things. In the next 90 days, anybody that applies will automatically be grandfathered in to the old rule. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. They have to go through the process, the application process, and once they have a completed application or completed permit, then they do that.
Thank you. I will now open up the public testimony. Thank you, Barbara.
You guys answer my question. Can I get my name scratched off that list so you don't holler for me on?
What is your name?
Michael Jacobs.
Okay.
It should be like on page 3.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll start with William Hendricks. William Hendricks. Calling him Mark Sylvester, just to get people ready. Mr. Hendricks.
Well, let me light this candle, Commissioners. Thank you for your time and efforts here. And I like what the lady said about lifting the moratorium. I'm all about that. I'm a business owner in I-502, and I look forward to doing business in this area. I'm looking at hiring at least 6 to 16 people full-time. To start out, I'll have 6 people employed at approximately $200,000 a year. With that being said, that's 6 people taken off the unemployment list. My taxes in this game are very, very high. I don't know if you know, but it's 25% straight up to the state in this game here. 7% probably go to the county, so I'm looking at 32%. The partners look at me and say I'm crazy, what am I doing? You know, but you know what? I've been in agriculture for quite a while. I've been growing vegetables for most of my life, and when this came along, I saw it as an opportunity that had to be take it. And my wife, she's a school bus driver. I'm responsible for the cranes in downtown Seattle, and I like to give that up and come out here and grow marijuana and hire the locals in this area. To get the ball rolling on this, please look to moratorium.
Thank you. Mr. Hendricks, could you just, I forgot to ask folks to state their address.
Okay, my address, I have several properties. The property I'm going to be doing it on is 550 Crest View out on Agate Pass. My mailing address is P.O. Box 1003, Lake Bay, Washington, 98349.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask the gentleman's trade name?
Trade name? Oh, Mother's Other Garden. Thank you.
Mark Sylvester.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Mark Sylvester. My address is 4201 Juniper Court, Southeast in Lacey, Washington. My property is at 1001 East Mulaney Creek Road here in Shelton. I represent Staffy's Gardens. We are a Tier 2 facility on the application sheet that was handed out. And I stand before you this evening to ask to lift the moratorium. I believe that the work that was done by your zoning department was done diligently, thoughtfully. I like what I heard this evening also. To construct this ordinance to allow people who voted 55.3% in this county to proceed with I-502. Due process occurred. Your hearings did take place and rules were followed. The ordinance enacted by the Commission put in motion this new legal market in Mason County. Passing the ordinance was the starting pistol for viable businesses to invest substantial amounts of money in Mason County, and they have, Staffy's Garden included. Recreational marijuana applicants vying to be legal producers, processors, or retail operators are subject to scrutiny at levels never seen by any other industry. What other industry's spouse has to be investigated? Whether a business requires your financier to prove that they're they're from the state of Washington, they're a legal resident, their money is not ill-gotten. 502 covers all the bases from seed to sale. It is written to ensure there are no legal loopholes to bring usable product to the black market, which has been in this county. I'm 45 years old. It was here before I was here. I-502 was written to restrict locations near children. It is written to require licensees to comply with local ordinances, to include notifying the local authority and providing time for the authority to object or not. There is a small minority group attempting to hijack the democratic process, Commissioners. Due process was followed by the county. And now some to choose to voice their feelings and worries against illegal business as the cause of crime, which I understand seems to be the biggest issue, that this will cause crime. And Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen of the room, I'm here to tell you that crime does not know an address. There is only one legal recreational marijuana operation who hasn't even come to market yet in this county, yet crime happens every day. Not one has brought their product to market, but yet kids still have weed, and they have for decades. The least of your crimes should be these legal operations. They have security and safety concerns that the state puts on them. It's a great burden, but it's worth it. We should continue to be concerned about meth, heroin, cocaine, illegal grow operations and processing operations, and prescription drug abuse. These are important social issues that burden our law enforcement resources, and rightfully so, not legal marijuana operations. Commissioners, please lift this moratorium, give law-abiding people the opportunity set forth in your ordinance. Consider the ordinance that Ms. Atkins presented also. Allow legal operations to conform and comply with your rules and regulations. If or when they fail to conform or comply, initiate your enforcement standards, abate the process, address concerns, compliance issues, if they're nuisances or not. Give the community the chance to have their voice if their neighbor is not a good neighbor. And thank you for the opportunity to show my support for this ordinance. Please lift the moratorium.
Thank you. Deb Peterson.
Hi, I'm Deb Peterson. I live at 514 West Vandy Farms Road in Shelton, become zoned rural 5. And I am an I-502 processor applicant. Prior to last year's decision for the voters decided to legalize recreational marijuana. And while I was an approved medical marijuana patient, I spent several months developing oils and butters with strain-specific marijuana flowers that could help me with pain issues and unavailability to sleep. Once the initiative passed, I decided to pursue my I-502 processor's license because it was such an excellent business opportunity. I also own over 12 acres in the Skokomish Valley in a residential area on a side road where there are currently at least 5 other businesses, including an ice cream factory, a coffee roaster, construction company. And I don't know whether my neighbors would object to me having a marijuana business on my property, but frankly, I didn't think that they had the right to choose that. It seems to me that denying me the opportunity to develop a legal business on my property would fall under the realm of unfair business practices. We have before us wonderfully open doors for business opportunities in Mason County, and I-502 applicants have been working diligently to develop a stable, respected, responsible industry, and we take this opportunity very seriously. We made one huge mistake. Unfortunately, we failed to take the time to stay engaged with our elected officials and our community members, and we've all been really busy balancing our plans and our budgets against the state's compliance demands for very expensive security and surveillance systems, tracking programs, packaging and insurance requirements, quarantine and transportation mandates, procedures for safe disposal of waste, and quality control issues, to name just a few. In the process, we've apparently unwittingly backed some of our neighbors into a corner, and I feel responsible for that. Had the people on Sells Road been more educated about how this is all rolling out from the state, and had they been more engaged in the process, we probably would not be here tonight. As genuine as these people are, I believe that their concerns are fear-based, and I don't believe there's really any basis for that fear. I would like to see some significant efforts made by the elected officials to focus on educating our neighbors about the transparency and legitimacy of this industry, and I would certainly like to see the moratorium lifted. I'm sorry. I believe that denying us our legal rights as business owners, you are endorsing the black market. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. I will be getting strict about the 2-minute warning, and I apologize for that. I was reminded that I need to be consistent with it. Larry Taylor, please.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Larry Taylor. I live at 514 West Bambi Farms Road. Since others have or will cover most of the other aspects of the not in my backyard assertions, I'm going to concentrate on the complaints about sights, smells, and imagined traffic increase from the legal growing marijuana operations. I have yet to see even an attempt to prove harm from sight of a legal farming operation, not one. Yet somehow the mere sight inside of a privacy fence is deemed to be something worthy of complaint. How is a securely fenced and monitored marijuana field being close to children a danger? I have yet to hear of a verified report of anyone being damaged by the sight of farming, even marijuana. I do not expect that ever will. I live in a salmon spawning river. The smell of decaying fish is not always pleasant. What do I do about it? I ignore it. It will not harm me. It is temporary. It is part of a natural ecosystem. Unpleasant or not, these non-toxic, natural odors, the same as marijuana. I live in an area of hay fields. Many are allergic to the pollens of associated dusts from farming. Think hay fever. Do we outlaw haying? Of course not. We accommodate its associated problems for the greater good, unless we are not in my backyard person. There is a sometimes coffee roaster in my neighborhood. The odor is not always pleasant. It would never occur to me to complain about it. The odor is not harmful to anyone, although there are entire religions who believe that ingesting caffeine to be harmful. It is still completely legal. It is temporary. It is well within the bounds of civilized behavior. Increased traffic? Why would a farm that is legally prohibited from selling to anyone other than the licensed processor have any additional traffic? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Ed Edmondson, please. Ms. Dunn.
Could you check around the
Ed
corner?
Edmonston?
Is that the guy that spoke earlier?
Tom Davis?
Thank you, Commissioners. Tom Davis. I promise this is the last time I will speak tonight.
Have 2 minutes.
There's been a complicated process that through PAC, the Planning Action Committee, has gone through in great detail, with great effort and great consciousness to consider all the elements of I-502 and the cannabis industry in Mason County and where it should be zoned and where it should be located. That process was open to the public. That process was done pretty much better than any process I've seen. They came from one position, one mindset, all the way to the other mindset in their conclusion. And they gave their recommendations to this board. And this board, actually, they were very liberal in their recommendations, and they're a very conservative group of people. But they bothered to learn the facts. This board rolled them back a little bit and said, not so much, but here's what we will adopt. And then you went ahead with all the meetings and all the processes and everything that you could imagine for anyone who is even slightly interested in the topic. And then you went ahead and exercised your ruling. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You have nothing to apologize for. You did everything right. Anyone who cared at the moment about what's going on in the community showed up and spoke. Now you've placed a moratorium on marijuana. And it's funny because it seems to be in response to just a handful of very decent people. That has not been the history in this chambers in the past. And so I would say to you, the process is reversed. Now you're going to take something and give it back to PAC. I don't understand that. That's not the way it usually works. Usually PAC gives their recommendations to you, but you're going to recommend something to PAC. I think we all know where it's going. We just need the spines to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Parsons. Michelle Parsons, are you here? Ed Edmondsdale, please. Paul Vaughn, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time, and I appreciate the hard work you put in. And I do believe you're doing the best you can to do the right thing for the county and the people of the county. I would recommend that you remove the moratorium. There is a lot of restrictions already on the growers that we have to meet to keep the neighborhood safe. Somebody mentioned that there isn't a rush. There is partially a rush for 2 reasons. The state will close down the applications once they get to 2 million square feet of canopy, and people who are still waiting will get one. But also the county could lose. I'm sorry, I didn't say my address. I actually live in Port Orchard. I was attempting to purchase a property on Razor Road outside of Belfair when this moratorium went in effect. I'm right now in a purchasing agreement with a property on Dayton Airport Road.
What is your name of your business?
Root Works. So I actually spent most of the day down in Thurston County because they have some better economic options now that this moratorium is in effect. And the gentleman who's going to pay $200,000 for 6 people won't be able to hire people away from me. From my research, these jobs are going to start at $20 an hour. The people have to pass significant background checks and have significant investigation in order to work for us. $20 an hour plus jobs for Mason County could be very helpful. So I appreciate your time, and I recommend you lift the moratorium.
Thank you. Mark Carlson, please.
Alrighty.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner, for letting me speak. All right. All people like some of them, some people like most of them. Very few of us like and respect and stand up for all of them. I stand before you as a citizen of Mason County and protest your decision to put a ban/moratorium on the rights of personal people's property in Mason County via Initiative 502 under the cloak of rural residential. I-502, the law, we the people initiated, the law, we the people have voted in. Now, this now being the law that we the people passed, the politicians and lawmakers are deciding to punish us. We the people for voting in the law via excessive taxes, regulations and control of illegal commodity. We all have rules and regulations and or penalties that have come attached with 502. That wasn't good enough for Mason County. After a required time of public hearings, public input, a decision was made to allow marijuana farms in the county with a minimum of 5 acres in rural residential areas. The plan was published and moved on and moved forward until some angry neighbors that were not against it, before they were against it, showed up at the commission meeting chanting, "Not in my backyard." Instead of standing up for due process and your initial decisions, you, the commissioners, folded like a lawn chair. I do not believe that the people would be upset about someone moving out into the country and having a farm. I believe that the people are unaware of marijuana as a legal commodity. In the same areas these legal marijuana farms are going to be, we have farms also. Oyster farms, people farm their clams on the waterfront. Like marijuana, these commodities are also legal, regulated, and taxed by the state. There are other businesses in these areas: wineries, dairy farms, convenience stores, gas stations, drive-in theaters, and RV repairs. If these legal businesses are able to thrive and expand, then other businesses should be able to produce legal commodities.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes. And none of these businesses were shut down in the rural residential, and neither should legal marijuana farms. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Avery, please. Diane, who's here? You'd be following her. And you can please remember to state your address after that.
Diane Avery, 70 Southeast Souls Drive. I kind of think I see what you went through. You went through the meetings to make a decision. Hearing person after person after person say what they say, it's really convincing. It sounds, it sounds. I have to just shake my head and think, my neighborhood, myself, it isn't the process of what we're wanting to do and making money doing it. It's legal and all that, and I agree with it. But not agree with the process and that they have the right. I just shake my head at where these are. I commend you for the moratorium you did place, and I caution you to reconsider or to do something about looking maybe on a case-by-case basis at residential areas or R5, like my neighborhood. It is a neighborhood, and this is going to impact the visual and everything about our neighborhood and the property values and all that. And it's just wrong. It doesn't belong there. I think it belongs in more commercial areas. Port, like I know this one at the port. I think that's a great spot. But we weren't there because we didn't know. That's why we weren't there. We did not know. I'm retired to read those little ads in the paper. I knew it was going on. I never dreamed I would have one in my neighborhood. And I'm sure most of the people in this county, they're thinking this is going on, and they're probably visualizing this just a big tree-filled, huge property with a farm you won't be able to see in it. None of it, and that isn't the case. And I'm very concerned.
County Commissioner?
Hello, my name is Diane Boucher, and I reside at 291 Southeast South Drive. Let's be clear, I am not against I-502, and I'm not against business owners doing what they need to do to create a business. What I'm against is that it's in my neighborhood. I purchased my home less than 2 months ago, not realizing what was happening in my neighborhood. My neighborhood is outside of the urban growth boundary. We're not protected by the rules that are set in place within the urban growth boundary. I have a 14-month-old son who now will have to grow up down the street from I don't know what, because this is a new business, this is new venture, we don't know what it's going to bring. We don't know that there aren't going to be criminal activity because it hasn't happened before. I'm a parent, and I'm here, and I'm going to stand up for my child and where he's going to grow up. Please don't lift the moratorium. Let's take some more time to research and understand what's going to happen and what the effects are. We're not the only rural residential applied neighborhood here. There are other businesses going in, and they're going in quickly. There are our residential neighborhoods within just miles of our neighborhood that if the moratorium is raised, those applications are going to be in quicker than you can even imagine and pushed through so that they can be included in the grandfathered rules. So please just take some more time and decide what rules need to be changed before you just open the floodgates again so that this happens to other neighborhoods as well. Thank you.
It's Dave.
Pass.
Yourself, right? Dave Vincent, I think, for 320 South Drive?
Yes.
Oh, you're passing. Thank you. Marilyn Vogler, please.
Commissioners, Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Alfred Shelton. I have to say, I have been very impressed with what I've heard from the commissioners and from the residents tonight about the importance of process, because this is what I came to talk about. Other people have said, and I concur, everything was done right in the process. But that stopped, I think, when the moratorium was placed on the 1st of July. The Commission originally put a moratorium on development in 2011. And I believe, Ms. Adkins, you were cited by the paper as saying when that moratorium was renewed that putting the zoning regulations into effect had been a bit more difficult than you'd anticipated or something. But that moratorium for at least a year was in place while you were getting the zoning right. It may need to be changed, but as Commissioner Netherland, you said, it should be done by process. There is an orderly process for changing those, and it doesn't involve a moratorium that interrupts what people expect to have happen. Residents, citizens have to be able to trust there will be public hearings, there will be a process followed. So do business owners. And I implore you to raise the moratorium, let things go forward as the process is supposed to be laid out.
Thank you very much. Joan Hayes.
Joan Hayes at 1123 East Moline Creek Road in Shelton. I'd like to see the moratorium stay on so that maybe we could work something out on a case-by-case basis on how things are operated or approved. I've said it a million times, our driveway is a private road, not county kept by the residents, mostly my husband and brother. And
mile and a quarter to our house, so that's a long driveway to keep up. So we're gonna have another business. We can't even keep the residents helping us all the time. I just have to be the biggest snag, I think. So I think that's something that should be looked into, is if it's a private drive or a county road. Also on this, the proposed spot for this has 6 residents with legal easement right through the middle of the property. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I think it's something that bears looking into for other areas also. None of us on the road are against the legal marijuana operation. We're just kind of against it happening there because we do not want our property value to go down. At 20 acres, a nice big place, and I'd hate to see my values go down, especially at our age when, you know, that might be our bankroll for when we're retired. I have a letter that Tracy and Dan Johnson wanted me to read, and they can read here.
Make sure that we're under the 2 minutes.
How are we?
I'm actually 20 seconds.
Okay, well, she just wanted to say that it's a gold rush mentality. Since we had this proposed location, within 2 days of us hearing about it, there was an act of vandalism on private property on our driveway. That we do not, that most of the people, not only on our driveway, but a lot of the applicants that have come in are not from Mason County. So why are they doing this? They don't get to vote for you guys, or just come into Mason County to do it. Cheaper property probably, I don't know. So it's something to look into. And there's over 45 people wanting to do it in Mason County. Are we going to approve all 45 of them? That seems like a lot for our county.
Thank you.
Nick Sells, please.
My name is Nick Sells. I've got property on Southeast Sells Drive, 400. I want to kind of change what I was going to say because I think there might be a little bit of misinformation. The second guy that spoke said that crime doesn't know an address. If these don't, you know, there's no danger in these. According to Washington State, their official document, it says, due to the high monetary value placed upon marijuana, areas can experience a number of home invasions, thefts, and murders related to the cultivation of marijuana. So the growers, of course, are going to tell you, no problem. It's not going to do anything, no ill effects. Unless Washington State is wrong, I'm going to go with what Washington State says. And I guarantee that anyone who's here who says, oh, I don't have any problem with it, if they got a letter from Washington State saying, now you're going to experience more home invasions, more robberies, and more murders, they would have a problem with it. And so I just wanted to address that really quick. I also wanted to say that the people don't want this. The people, like someone said, it was one neighborhood. Yeah, because it was the first one to go in. You had 60 people who are saying, what's going on? Of course the growers are going to stand up and say, we want this. Of course people are going to make money. You're going to stand up and say, we want this. But for every one of those, you've got 70, 80 people in these neighborhoods that say, I don't want it. And the interesting thing is, all the people who want it seem to be from out of the county. Your job as county commissioners is to protect the people that voted you in. The people don't want it. The growers do. If you don't ban this in rural residential areas, what you're basically doing is selling out the people who voted you in to make a handful of people rich. And those handful of people that you're making rich aren't even from the county. You're supposed to protect us. You're not supposed to get people from King County out here saying, we're going to make a whole bunch of money off you. You're not supposed to protect the interests of people from Oregon. You're supposed to protect us. According to Washington State, this is bad for neighborhoods. Marijuana's cool. You grow it all you want anywhere else, but not in neighborhoods. It makes no sense. Lift the moratorium, like the lady back here said, but keep it in rural residential. That's what this is all about. You can grow it anywhere you want, but it shouldn't be in residential areas. Thank you.
Allison Bowen.
Hi. My name is Smith Cobley, Shelford, Washington. I have to agree with him that most of the growers are from out of the area, and they don't vote for our people here, but anyhow, what I'm concerned about is the residential aspect of it, of having these farms and stuff in our residential areas. And it does affect your property values. I've sold real estate, I know that. I know that it's going to affect your values. And but I know most of the people that have these farms going up around them, I don't think they realize if they even voted for this, what was going to happen. And I think they're just realizing now what the impact of this is going to have on them. And I think they're just all shocked by the whole thing. They didn't expect to have it right next door or anything like that. And I do feel sorry for the people that do have these in their neighborhoods, because it is going to affect their property value and their quality of living. So, you know, I have nothing against people growing marijuana and stuff. It's just that I agree with them that it should be in a you know, industrial area or a large agricultural area, not in the neighborhoods. That's what me is what I'm concerned about, is in the residential neighborhoods. And that's mainly it. You know, I know you guys are doing the best job you can, and it's a very difficult situation. But thank you.
Edward Malillo?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for having me.
Your address, please.
470 Tunerville Drive, Northeast. And it's a RR5 designated property. And we intend to, we have a pending application that we intend to grow. We have a Tier 2 license. And we agree, of course, to lifting the moratorium. We applaud the planning commission, and all the parties that are connected to considering the due process requirements. If I understand right, all you folks are doing is just following the RCW. You're following state law, doing zone variance, and I sympathize with everyone in this chamber that in their neighborhood, you know, do they want someone to grow an operation? Well, you know, that's what the whole process is for public notice and hearings. And maybe down the road, all of your concerns, you bring them up when the council meets again to do zone variances, given the 90-day lifting of the moratorium. There are a number of growers, producers, and processors, such as in our position, who have already invested money. We've hired neighbors around us. They've been employed, a half dozen of them, to do some contract work, some employment work, and we still intend to do that once we get started, and if we can get started. So we have maybe arguably not a vested interest, but we have what the courts have recognized, a vesting doctrine. We have already put in our efforts according to property rights. So again, I applaud the reconsideration by this council, and hope we can work out a reasonable resolution for everybody here, including rural residential. Who knows? I mean, you want a Tier 3, RR5, maybe not, but that's something that should be taken up on public notice again.
Deb Nielsen, possibly?
She's up there. She's up there, sorry.
And then I'm going to call Don Easton.
Hi, Deb Nielsen. My address is 12 Christmas Tree Lane. I would like to urge the county commissioners to stay the moratorium to research options better for rural residential. And I'd also like to encourage you, since we have so many people interested in agriculture, to perhaps research growing food items, since we have so many families in our county that don't have enough food, that if we have this many people interested in growing product, could they grow something that's going to nourish our county? And I urge you to look into that as seriously as you're looking into this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Easton, please.
Yeah, approach. These pictures are worth telling you. My name is Don Easton. I live at 323 Southeast Sells Drive, Shelton, Washington. I live next door to the west of the Forbidden Farms facility. Unfortunately, that's the only one I can testify to. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak regarding the marijuana grow and production within Mason County. I'd first like to say I do not care what an individual does on their property regarding the use of marijuana, as long as it does not negatively impact me and my family, or the majority of my fellow neighbors. Unfortunately, Forbidden Farms has created many areas of concern for me. I feel these concerns would be reflected in other grow and production operations as well. Therefore, I'm breaking down my talking points into two areas: impacts and solutions. First one is impact, and there's two types of it that are going to be in the impact. Personally, decrease to my property value. According to Zillow, which many prospective home buyers visit, it's a website, indicates that my property value as of July 20, 2014 has gone down $14,000 in the last 30 days. No physical changes to my property has occurred over that period of time. Another neighbor said their value went down $40,000 in the same 30-day period. Aesthetics. My property footprint is such that I look directly down into the grow and production facility. The fencing, buildings, lighting, and personnel are not obstructed from my view. Needless to say, the buildings and the infrastructure do not present themselves in a pleasant manner. See photo 1. What you'll be looking at there is the front of my home with the grow operation in the right-hand corner. That's what I just presented you. Photo number 2 shows you Forbidden Farms viewed from my front yard as I'm looking down into it. Concerns with noise. The facility rests within a rural residential neighborhood that is similar to an amphitheater. Residents can easily hear vehicles pulled into driveways, doors closing, and most of the time people carrying on casual conversations. Concerns with lighting. Security lighting for the facilities are going to be very visible from our property left into our home. Security. We have a large section of forested area to the north that traverses parallel to my property, Forbidden Farms property, and other neighbors' property. This road is to the north, and Sells Drive is a horseshoe road that is located on the west and east side, connecting to Lynch Road. Anyone wishing to enter the production property through the forest area would have hidden access onto the property and paved roads for quickly exit.
Transmit. I'm sorry, Peter.
You have the 2 minute already?
Yeah.
Can I just go with the solution portion real quick? May I, Madam Chair?
You have to be fair to everybody and treat everybody exactly alike.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Can we make available to the public that requested the comments of that gentleman?
At request, yes. That would be a good
There's a
idea.
lot of stuff that he has in there you might want to read and know.
I just had one question. With Forbidden Farms, is it a tier 3 outdoor grow?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Bob McKenzie.
Thank you very much. I'm at 6241 Northeast Bear Creek, Delano Road in Belfair. I use my glasses. I'm a prospective I-502 licensee for production and processing. And I bought the land outside Belfair in northern Mason County and made application for operations in Mason County in December 2013 because I trusted the county's published regulations that had been carefully prepared by the various departments of the county. I trusted that the county had indeed come to its decisions following careful assessments of the facts. I put my life savings into following the county's rules for the project and looked forward to the time when I could make a significant operation going that would bring many jobs to the county and be a benefit to the area that I would be in. I've been in contact with the county since December 2013 and have followed all the rules of the county and state to the letter in all the ways that I was aware of. I invested and changed the boundaries of lots at the request of the county in order to comply with the specific terms the county had established. My operation is very rural, although it's rural residential 5. I bought in a very rural location on purpose. My property adjoins a large wooded tract for lumber, and there are only a handful of homes within a mile of my property. Yet the moratorium seems to apply to my land the same as if it were in the middle of town. I can appreciate how some folks would be afraid of such a new venture going into their neighborhoods, and I myself had reservations about whether cannabis was good or bad, until my son challenged me to actually study the subject. After studying, I realized that I had been misinformed much of my life and that cannabis was indeed more benign and of more benefit than wine. Not only that, it's very healthy in many, many ways. Having an I-502 production and processing operation in an area should pose no more of an effect on the neighborhood than to have a boutique winery. I urge the county to reconsider its stand and rescind the moratorium. And I think that would be appropriate. Rescind the moratorium.
I have Iris Wells Van Akkeren on the perhaps.
Iris, you're up.
And following her, Shelley Johnson.
She's coming.
And then Sean Johnson.
Take her a minute to get there.
And that's what we're talking about. Sure enough.
Come on in, Iris.
I sat there so long I can hardly remember. I've got two things to say. One,
state your address, please. I'm sorry.
I thought at first you had to have 5 acres. And so when I read the law, I've got a lot more than 5 acres. I'm sitting there with 65, but I'm not going to grow pot on it. It's just against my thoughts. I now read the maps, and it looks to me like you put together 2.5 acres. So when we get a bad rap in the paper, I don't like it, because I couldn't complain about something that didn't happen until April, back in November. I didn't know it was going to happen. Had I known, I would have been here in November. Now that was the Shelton Journal printed that one by the attorney Bernberg or whatever his name is. And so I don't think these people were all at fault for not being here in November when this forbidden farm thing are dated in April. That's number one. I had a second one. What was it? Oh yes. The liquor board, it said in the journal, gives out the licenses, but they do not give approval for the zoning. That's up to you. You have the unhappy job of doing that. So by saying, and I believe Commissioner Netherland said it in good faith, that these people were very particular who they granted licenses to. Yes, they may be, but they do not control the zoning at the liquor board. You control it. And so I hope it can be worked out somehow so this doesn't happen in neighborhoods all across Mason County. Because the people, as I have my heart out there. I don't live there, but I grew up there. And I care about it. I care about the people. I care about the children. I have seen a generation of my own children's age wiped out by improper use of marijuana. If it's controlled and medically done, I don't have any problem with that, or if it's growing in the right place.
Thank you.
And I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me.
Shelley Johnson? Shelley Johnson? Oh.
My name is Shaloy Johnson. I live at 2935 West Taconish Valley Road, Shelton, Washington. This is not my first public hearing, and I try to avoid them at all costs, because out in the valley years ago we went through growth management, where I came up and stand before commissioners, and we absolutely got nothing done for us in the valley. I'm here today. I am very thankful my children are grown. This woman who just moved here 2 months ago and is worried about her children, it breaks my heart to see this going on. There is a farm in the valley, which is very close to my house, that has been approved. Its license has been issued. But
But my concern is, in the valley, we are not allowed to do any construction because we're in a floodplain. However, as you drive towards my house, you will see an 8-foot fence surrounding this marijuana farm with an outbuilding in the side of it there. And my husband has contacted the county and asked how in the world can this be without any permitting going on. And we've been told that they're going to do nothing about it, that if they don't have the manpower to chase it down or whatever. That is a travesty, because when the growth management came in and the flooding is so bad in the valley, we had to hire an attorney to get the planners to allow us to build a flood wall to protect my children from the flood coming through the dining room at a ferocious rate. So I'm very upset that the state can mandate laws, but the county has not had the opportunity to take the time to see how it's going to affect each area these farms are going to be in. And I say you must have the moratorium stay in place because more research must be done. The valley's agriculture, as Barbara mentioned, and it was not researched, that valley has supposedly a lockdown where you can't do these things. So I just say the moratorium must stay on, and you better do some further research. And thank you for your time, and I'm trusting you will do it.
Thank you. Sean Johnson.
Hi, my name is Sean Johnson. I live in the Skokomish Valley. Our family's been farming in the valley for 113 years. I'm a better farmer than I am a speaker. But I just wanted to let you know that I think you should keep the moratorium on, keep it on for as long as you want. And there's one thing you should remember, that this is against federal law to grow this stuff. And you guys are, the banks are smart enough to stay away from it. You guys ought to be smart enough to stay away from it too. And my wife talked about the buildings, or the building projects that have been done out there, and you're so fond of your planning department that they've allowed this. I've called 4 times, talked to 5 different people, and nothing's been done. In Mason County, it is against the law to build a fence higher than 6 feet high without a permit and engineering by a PE. And these guys have done nothing. They haven't taken an electrical permit. They haven't done anything, but they're out there growing this stuff. And you people need to get your act together before you allow all these nuts to go out and do their thing. There's nothing good that can come from growing this stuff. It's destroying the moral fabric of our society. And we've elected you people, and do something. Don't sit on your butts. Do something.
Thank you. Ron Carson? I think I got that right. From Gallagher Road? Ron Carson. Ron Carson?
Hi. I'm Roy Parson from 1601 West Gallagher Road. We also have Let's Hear One, Lost Lake Gardens. We're in the IHR land, which is commercial timber. Basically, Arlington has. So basically, we're asking you to lift the moratorium. And we put our life savings into this, and we can't really afford to lose it.
My name is Michelle Parson, I'm his wife, and I understand those who are on Sales Road. We've had 3 beautiful children. They are now grown. I understand how you feel and wanting to protect them, but when my children were younger, I made it such an effort to always know what was going on in my community. Shelton Journey does a great job, the Herald, and for me, I understand that. But
yeah, we need to cut the rules.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I understand.
And Commissioners, thank you for hearing us tonight, but we put this in place in November. We trusted. We didn't want to be a part of anything until we knew where you were going to take us as a community. You gave us the zoning, and we took the step of faith and are doing a Tier 1. We are a mom and pop business. All the businesses are Tier 3s that have been passed. We don't have the finances maybe to go as quickly, but we're not all nuts. as the gentleman just once said. We are good people.
And we do live here in Mason County and have lived here since 1999, and we do vote. So just to let you guys know.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, guys.
Karen Jensen, please.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Karen Jensen. My address is 1052 East South Island Drive in Shelton, and the name of my business is Farming and Enterprises. I lived in work and sent my kids to school and paid taxes and lived in Mason County for almost 10 years now. I drove 2,000 miles just so that I could live here, because I think it's the biggest county in the state, if not the country. And I can't imagine living anyplace else. And I know that there's other people here like me who think that this county is at home, and they are worried and afraid of the changes that are taking place here. I think with enough education and some enforcement of the rules that are already in place, that most of their concerns would be alleviated, if not all of them. But I've got some concerns of my own as well. After a long and public process, in November, Mason County gave me the right to open a marijuana business on my property. I live on 6.6 acres of R20 rural zone area. My lot is 200 feet wide by a third of a mile long. I would like to be a Tier 1 grower, and the state limits that to 1,400 square feet right now, which is roughly the size of 8 parked cars on 6 acres. My neighbors cannot see my garden from where they are. You cannot see it from the road, cannot see it from the water, and there's not going to be any smell from it. The only rooms are downwind. With this moratorium, it hurts me that you impose. I spent probably $20,000 to $25,000 getting this business going, and I can't afford $25,000 for a tomato garden. I've given up money, I've given up time. I gave up my second job, hoping that this would replace it. I logged timber, and I'm going to ask you to lift this moratorium and allow me to go forward with the business that you told me that I could go forward with just 8 months ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael and Brenda Jacobs.
That was us, I don't.
No.
You already answered.
Doreen Bomar.
Hi, my name is Doreen Bomar. I'm at PO Box 472 in Athens. I am not a resident of Mason County, but I am a producer processor. I'm located in Mason County. I also represent several other producer processors as a consultant to the industry. I want to clear up a few things that were discussed earlier by others that have been misinformed. Through the drug war, there's been a lot of misinformation given over the past 50 years plus to people, making them think that cannabis is a very dangerous drug. It's currently scheduled as a Schedule I drug, meaning it has absolutely no medical benefit. However, studies have shown that it has a lot of medical benefits and are being studied all the time. Currently, methamphetamine is scheduled as a Schedule II drug. And I think everyone in this room would agree that methamphetamine is a lot more dangerous than marijuana. I understand the concerns of parents when they talk about the dangers that come from cannabis. Unfortunately, cannabis is already in our community, and it's here mostly due to cartel activity coming from Mexico. Most of their revenues are derived from our illegal market in the United States. Most of that money comes from us, Americans, who pay taxes, who are supporting that system. 502 is supposed to divert those funds away from cartels who sell to children who don't have to fall under any regulations. This market is a completely different thing. It's highly regulated. There are rules in place to protect minors, to educate people
The money from taxes are going to good things like education, paying for health care, paying to educate children about the dangers of marijuana, just like the dangers of alcohol and tobacco. Also, when you think about cannabis, you know, thankfully I think everybody in this room doesn't suffer from severe seizure disorders, epilepsy, Dravet syndrome. Maybe there are. There are massive amounts of parents moving here from other states to Colorado to take advantage of our drug laws, or our lack of the marijuana drug law. And those parents have not found solutions through the prescription drug system for their children. Some of them are seizing as many as 500 times a day. And these children rarely live past 10 years old. With cannabis use, a low THC but high CBD use.
Oh, right, just question.
Sure. These children have stopped seizures almost entirely. I urge you to lift your moratorium, and there's more I can say, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Nick Kelly, please.
Hi, my name is Nick Kelly, and I want to thank the council for letting me speak today. Just to follow up what Doreen was saying about, you know, this will bring a lot of jobs to the area, and it is medicinally proven to work for young kids. If you've seen the Sanjay Gupta show, I'm sure you've seen that on CNN. This industry needs to be encouraged to grow and not hamstrung at this stage. We've already, you know, moved on. There are people that have their lives invested in this. Local people need to have access to cannabis. People are moving up here, like Doreen said. If 502 is to succeed, the hurdles need to be removed so that producers like myself can drive away the black market. I have kids. I'd like to see that go away. If the moratorium stands, Mason County will lose jobs. Locals will just migrate to Thurston County, and you guys will lose out. If I have any more time, I'd like to yield to Doreen.
I don't think you can do that.
Okay.
No,
it's worth a try. She has some wonderful things to say.
I know it is, but I'm just speaking as one commissioner. I don't think you set the rules. I think the rules are set, and then everybody follows the same rule. That's the way I do it.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Lawrence Seward.
Good afternoon. My name is Lawrence Seward. I'm from Silverdale, and I guess I represent a small but sizable group of people that simply just want to get to work. So I say we lift this moratorium and let people get to work. Thank you. That's your name.
Brent Orm.
Yes. Thank you. I'm Brent Orm, one of those naive selves-drive property owners I've been heard so much about and been scolded numerous times by Mr. Davis. And I guess I want to respond to that and what the commission had to say about a week or two ago. I lived in Mason County my whole life, and I followed Mason County politics closely. And I know where Tim stands, and I really didn't know where Randy stood. I thought I knew where you stood. And I never in my wildest dreams thought that the Mason County Commission would approve pretty much the Wild West lack of regulations that you guys approved in the zoning or the allowance of pot farms. It varies greatly from what's going on in other counties. For instance, in Thurston County, Thurston County, they require pot farms in R5, which you pointed out a large part of our county is, to meet the character of the existing neighborhood. And you can't see it from the road, and from public access, not supposed to be able to see it from the adjoining property owners. In Lewis County, if there's adjoining property next to an R5 pot farm, it has to have a setback of a minimum of 200 feet from the property line. And so I'm urging you today to uphold your moratorium and go back and get this right. Just because Tom says, hey, a deal's done, it's a deal done, and you don't have the right to bitch about it, and we just move forward. I totally disagree. This is America. People always have redress, and a second opportunity to take a look at things. That's what democracy is all about. And so I urge you to keep your moratorium in place, and I'd be more than happy to work with whatever group you want to put together to talk a little more about what should go on in R5. And to me, the 8-foot fence with razor wire and lights on from dusk to dawn for outdoor grow operations next door to somebody's house is, I can't believe you guys allow that.
We need to.
Thank you.
Bob McKenzie, please.
I already went.
Thank you. Joe Krecker? Joe Krecker?
Anybody coming around the corner? Yep, he's coming.
Hi, thank you very much for giving me the time to speak. A lot of the things that I wanted to say.
Mr. Krecker, could you state your address, please?
Yes, 111 Ranch Road.
Thank you.
A lot of the things that I wanted to say have already been said tonight by a lot of other people. This business is very, very strict regulations by the state. Obviously, this is by no means easy to do. All our fertilizers are organic. What most people use in their yard, Scott's Turf Builder, is a lot worse for the environment than what we're allowed to use. I know that me and my partners have over $200,000 at stake, money that we've saved a long time. Spoke with Mason County. We're told that we were in compliance. Signed a lease, 5-year lease that we're tied into. And now we kind of feel that the carpet has been pulled out from underneath us, and here we stand, not sure what to do. Some statistics out of Colorado: crime down 10%, violent crime down 5%. In a year's time, they'll collect $140 million in tax revenues, $40 million of which will be going to schools. This is not something that's here to hurt the environment or hurt the folks around. I ask that you lift the moratorium.
Mr. Krecker, I asked a question. So you said that you were going to be using organic fertilizer, or you require everybody to require it?
Washington State is an absolute requirement. There are no chemicals allowed. Basically, worm casings and bat guano is what most people will be using.
No phosphorus or
Pesticides, fungicides that are harmful to the community are not allowed, or the crop will not be sold.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Michelle Parson, I feel like I asked that question. Michelle Parson, did we already call your name? That is all I have who have signed up. And so I'm giving an opportunity for those who have not signed up to testify. Raise your hands. Okay, thank you. Oh, is there more sign-up sheets out there?
I signed up on one of those.
I think there's a second sheet.
Oh,
Could somebody please bring us another sheet if it's out there?
There was another one.
Thank you.
Michael Tucker, good to see you.
I definitely understand the impact of the. What's your address?
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael Tucker, 470 Tudorville Avenue Northeast. Definitely understand the impact that larger tier 3 outdoor roads can have with lights and smell and various things on communities if they're close by. We're a tier 2 indoor facility. Our impact is negligible. Our smell is virtually nothing. We're completely sealed environment. It is true that we are regulated from using any toxic chemicals or nutrients on our plants. Our runoff is very restricted. In fact, this is the most restricted business that I've ever seen.
beside that point, we were allowed to come here and welcomed to come here and followed all regulations to this point. Now we're weeks away from finalizing our operation and have spent my entire life savings. Credit cards are maxed. The equity in my home is gone. And I need to move forward on this or I'm destroyed. And now this moratorium comes up, and it's quite a shock to the system. And I've done everything possible to make sure that all regulations are followed and that the community is not impacted in any way. And I'm a smaller operation, so that's easier for me to do than a large grow operation, a large outdoor grow operation. But it'll be devastating if I can't move ahead and grow on this property. It is an R5 property that we were convinced we were allowed to operate on. And now the financial impact it'll have will be completely devastating. And my neighbors, I've hired several neighbors now who are thrilled with the fact that they have jobs and income because they're helping us with the build out and they will continue to help us with our operation. And these are people that moved here for the military and now are unemployed. The last 2 months I've been able to keep one of my neighbors from having to leave the home that they rent. Yes. And so I wish you would raise the moratorium.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody that did not sign up to testify that would like to testify? State your name and address, please, and I do need to ask you.
Not concerned what clipboard I did sign on, though.
So you are on here somewhere,
There's a
okay.
clipboard out there with several names, and some said no, but I
Could
said
somebody
yes.
please look around?
Yeah.
Out in the audience, could you
It was
please
to
look
the
around for
right.
any
There was-
clipboards that may be out there and bring them forward?
There was one to the left, I was the one to the right. Okay, Kathy Gerchak, 571 Southeast Sales Drive. I think it is a testimony that we're all still here. Forbidden Farms is there, they're grandfathered in. I'm here to speak for everybody else so that this doesn't happen to their neighborhood. I'm being altruistic here because my bed is made. It's 100 feet on my property line. But I want to protect the rest of the county and want the right decision to be made. And like I said, had we had any idea that this was going to happen and be allowed in neighborhoods, we would have been here. I think 6% of Washingtonians use the product in question. It's like the furthest thing off my radar. I thought they were mainly, and I think most people thought we were just decriminalizing it, not going to have all these productions of it or whatever. So decriminalization has been done in a lot of other states. I wish that's what we would have done, but here we are. Mason County, I'm a former real estate agent with ERA out of Clark County. And when I moved to Mason County, I was like, my God, this is like, there's so many different lots here. Finnsburger Loop is my little microcosm. I'm driving around Finnsburger Loop for the first time. And I cannot believe how there's like the big nice house next to a Jalopyville or, kind of a trailer thing. There's all different shapes and sizes. So 5 acres, if it's big and square, Commissioner Emily, saying big and square, put that thing right in the middle, yeah. But the one right behind us is long and skinny 5 acres. Or what if it's a flag lot? You've got all different shapes and sizes, so you got to take those into consideration. So that's why I think the best option for us is to, one, stay the moratorium until we can put this in place. Let's do a special use for this. There's special use permits for cell towers, access dwelling units, oversized construction, and if you read the special use application, it says, due to the unique characteristics, size, nature, intensity of use, demands on public services, relationship to surrounding lands, or other factors. That's why you have to apply for these. Let's do this on a case-by-case basis. If one neighborhood wants to have these, let them have it. And when people move in there, they have the choice. Hey, this has already been here. Not the opposite direction. Even for industrial. What if they go up to the port and now the wreath maker, I heard the wreath maker has to leave because of the smells. Or the coffee maker, maybe they have to leave because of the smells. Let's not say one thing because Mason County is too diverse for that. And the last thing is the revenue and the jobs. They're going to run as lean as possible. It can be surmised that these things are going to run as lean as possible with as little help because they're taxed so heavily. They're going to want to have some profit. And then none of the revenue comes to the state. HB 2144 did not pass through the House and the Senate last year, and they had mayors and people coming and saying, we don't want this in our counties unless we get some help for our sheriffs and other things. The mayor of Everett was there. But HB, House Bill 2144 did not pass, so right now the county gets absolutely none of the revenue from this.
Anybody else? Steve.
My name is Steve Andruski. I live at 548 Andruski Drive. I don't live on South Road. I don't live near Park Farm, but I'm a concerned citizen. I don't do marijuana. I've never done marijuana. I do drink, so I know that's legal as well. I guess my heart goes out to our community. I don't want Mason County to be known as a community of marijuana. I don't think that's what I want to be known for. I'm a citizen here. I'm involved in this community. I don't think that's what we want to be called. I don't think that when people think of Mason County, I don't want them to think, oh, that's where they grow marijuana. It's already one of the lowest education school systems, and that's the thing I've been striving for this county, is to see our schools improve, to see our education improve, to make this the #1 place where people want to come to be educated. Do I want marijuana supporting my education? Do I think that's the right way to get resources? I don't think so. I remember the lotto. I remember the promises. Oh boy, the lotto's coming. It's going to pay for all my school systems. It never did. And this is another one. Oh, all this money's going to come to our county. We're going to have all this money. I'm sorry, we can't count on those things. We need to count on each other. We need to care about this community. And what do we want to be known for? That's what we need to think about. What do we want to be recognized as? What does this county want to stand on? And so, as a member of this county, and an involved member, a citizen, I just want to say, I want to be known for better things. And that's what I want to say. Oh, and I'll look at this. You know, I noticed on the news that medicinal marijuana is now going out because recreational marijuana is more viable. So they have to now the medical marijuana industries have to shut their industries down and reopen and go through the whole process again to become recreational marijuana. And why have medicinal marijuana if you don't need it anymore? I mean, they can have it however they want it. So
That's not true.
it was on there.
Let's not have a conversation.
Sorry, it takes me a while. I'm in a wheelchair without marijuana. So, and I have stage 4 cancer.
Ma'am,
All right, not across the
if you're going to testify,
I will
walk
testify.
up and testify.
I'm walking up.
You will get into
Takes me a little bit.
I have I'm just one commissioner, but I tell you, if you get into a stream of
Yes, sir, I
consciousness,
understand,
you lose
and
control.
you've been kind of clear about your position. My name is Elise Vaughn. My address is 7989 Marseille Lane in Port Orchard. I am apparently one of the horrible people that are coming into your community. And what I wanted to state was a couple of things. I am stage 4 cancer. I use medical marijuana. The person that says medical marijuana is going out, it's not true. They're two completely separate, licensed, regulated industries. They're not the same. Recreational does not justify, they're not. It's apples and oranges. What our statement was, and why we came to Mason County, was because we were told, basically, that this was something that Mason County wanted to be a part of. We have a lot of money invested. A lot of these people have told you. Some people have up to $1 million to $2 million invested in some of these places. I've seen the Sales Road position, and I'm really sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I've seen the Sales Road situation, and it's a horrifying situation. I don't like it. I would not be happy if I lived on that. It's a large operation. It's an outdoor grow, but it's not the same as your indoor grow. You put a moratorium on, I think, for a good reason, and you've gone back over your accounts and you've looked at it. Now, I have bought property in industrial, and I am working with the court. So technically, the moratorium didn't affect me. But what bothers me is the misinformation that your county has about how it's being spent. So I can take those dollars, I can not buy my property here, and buy it in Thurston, who wants the business, and by the way, it's a little easier to get through. against contrary. People are sitting here, oh, Mason County's easy to get through, or this is the easy thing, or you're the big pot capital. You have a depressed economy in this county. I'm moving to this county. I wanted my business in my county. Where am I going to take my business? So my question to you is remove the moratorium. I don't count, I don't vote, but I do want to say that there is a lot more going on. It's quiet, there's no traffic, there's no smell. We have a completely indoor grow. You would never know it was there unless we put a big sign on it. We're not going to be doing that either. So, thank you.
Continue along this way. Anybody on this side of the room? No? Okay. Back to you. Nicole.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jean Leonard on my Low Cells Drive, type 10-280. I do not have issues with marijuana. It's a legal product. The voters voted to run 502 into the law. It's the law. Growing and processing marijuana is not a concern of mine either. My only concern is the word you heard a lot tonight, which is neighborhood. This is something, I apologize for not hearing about the first hearings. I've actually fessed up in civics courses that I missed it. I was unaware that Mason County would consider plopping an outdoor grow operation in the middle of a bunch of homes. They're just on a 5-acre parcel. Very few of the rest of us in the neighborhood have 5-acre parcels. So this really is a commercial, industrial marijuana grow operation in a residential neighborhood. It's not just a big rural residential zoning area, it's actually a neighborhood. My concern is that we didn't anticipate that this would happen, so yeah, we missed it, and we apologize for that. The community has become very engaged, and as a previous speaker said, we understand it's more challenging in our neighborhood because this was permitted legally. I think it was a mistake. I would hope that you would continue to look at your zoning and ask more questions. The concern that I have is that the liquor board is obligated to implement the legal marijuana regulatory scheme, and they are doing, I believe, an excellent job of that. They are making this a highly regulated and safe industry the same way they've done with alcohol for many years. They are not responsible for implementing any environmental concerns. The state agencies who look at environmental issues are the Department of Ecology and the Department of Health, and those two agencies have not yet engaged in this issue. This is an outdoor grow operation, so Mason County does not even require a building permit. Had a building permit been required, perhaps a secret checklist would have been required, and all of the environmental, aesthetic, air quality, water quantity, and other issues would possibly have been addressed. I would urge you to, if not maintain the exact moratorium language, edit it, revise it, but protect other rural residential neighborhoods from this. Thank you. Nicole?
I'm sure everything's going together now. It's almost started. Nicole is going to start. A couple of things. There's a mention of due process. You yourselves had said when you made the decision itself that the public was not fully represented. You went forward with the decision, well aware that who you had here with you were those interested in business. So due process, yes, but we do have a chance to revisit this now. Tier 1 still carries the same risks, not that we've come up with in our own imagination, but that the same department that issued that 502, they put out the reports of the things that we can be warned of and the risks that are there, carry the same as Tier 1 as it is Tier 3. The tier doesn't change it. The issue is location. People have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on their homes and their property, which should not carry with it risk. Entrepreneurial ventures are inherent with that. It's the name of the game. Your home shouldn't be that. So while I feel sorry for people who have invested financially in a business, it's not apples to apples with someone's home. You're not here to protect business investment. You're here to protect the citizens of the county. So I urge you to maintain the moratorium, especially since this proposal that you're considering tonight hasn't even been seen by the public. We don't know what is going forward anymore. All the moratorium does is
is push a pause button. It doesn't shut down I-502. It doesn't drive out business. It pushes a pause button so that you can look more into the situation, give the time that you need to get this right because it wasn't done right. And I think that your heart and intention is not to put these in residential areas. It's not. I know that. And you need time to fix it. A problem was made, and now you guys are being diligent to fix it, and you need the time to do that. And that's what a moratorium does. Pushes a pause, and I urge you to uphold it so you can get this right.
Anybody else?
My name is Maya Macmillan, and I'm at 511 Northwest Way in Pittsburgh. I didn't come prepared, and I apologize for that in advance, but I have two things that I wanted to address, especially in response and also from my own personal experience. First and foremost, I have actually lived and resided in multiple locations in Mason County where there have been illegal grow operations near my home. Very scary experiences in the middle of the night when you hear cars racing down the road. I would actually prefer that there be lights on the front of a grow facility anywhere near my home. And regardless of whether or not I have a say in them existing, I am aware that legal grow operations would push out the need for black market, which is actually what leads me to my next point. And that's that the black market and even the majority of the medicinal product that's sold now under medical marijuana laws, it's not regulated like the state wants to regulate the recreational marijuana, including but not limited to the pesticides used and also the mold and mildew content, the bug feces content, the actual the bugs that are in the plant itself. By having a moratorium in Mason County, it's allowing for that black market to continue forth. And in my opinion, to protect the citizens that do consume it and the medical patients that do consume the product, giving them the legal and regulated, state-mandated regulated grow facilities the opportunity to flourish only eliminates the really, really harmful things that come from illegal grow operations, including, again, but not limited to, the traffic that is around my home every night. I would greatly implore you to lift the moratorium so that we can move forward with the regulations that the state has come up with. It's only sad that the medical marijuana business, as of now, has not been regulated to the point that it should have been, and that for the state to make taxes on it, it can't be considered medical anymore. But at least we have all the documents and facts and tests that show the benefits of the product that we're consuming, instead of the reverse where there was only word of mouth, and whoever was growing was the word you were taking. So thank you for letting me speak. Thank you. My name is Sue Stevenson. I don't live in Mason County, and this is a product that is going to bring economic development into the community, along with all of the people that have spent their life savings and their properties, and they're all worried about that. I understand that. I work with Doreen. I'm trying to finish what she started saying up here. The application process, most of the 2,600 producer applicants have not made their way through the initial process. This gives an unfair advantage to the producer, processor, licensees who happen to be called first. Less than 100 producers have been licensed in the state so far. There will be many more business opportunities or operators trying to open up, and you'll be shutting most of them out. The economic development can be hurt by this. The security issues that are brought up, the I-502 and the LCB have put on such stringent rules for security when people talk about the crime to be increased in the neighborhoods where there's growing or processing or even retail going on. That is not the case. There is so much security involved in these properties that it's next to impossible for somebody to break into it. And if they do, I mean, if anybody has read the rules on the criminal guidelines that need to be put in place to keep them out, they would not be worried about the neighborhood or, I mean, I can understand not wanting the grow in my backyard, but it's a small number of people that are saying that. They're speaking for everybody. There's employment going on, there's people spending money to have lunch, there's, you know,
Thank you. Anybody else that has not signed in would like to testify? Is there anybody in the lobby that has not signed in but would like to testify?
Wait, is there? No,
Close the testimony. You would like to start the deliberation. So, obviously, a very, very possible issue to make everybody happy on. Any decision that comes up from either of us, from up here, will make somebody upset and will have been the wrong decision. This is an untenable situation. I totally understand that. And I think that there's issues around, people are talking about issues of the process, and that the process was followed, is not followed. I suspect there's going to be some issues about whatever process we choose to do tonight. I voted for the moratorium because there were concerns that were brought up, and those had not been investigated by me personally back in November. And those, specifically, I heard concerns about traffic, water quality, odor, light pollution, property values, the proximity to children. So I spent the last 2 weeks trying to investigate these issues. First of all, I just want to say, one of the people that spoke this evening said that a lot of the concerns are based on fears. And as I tried to investigate the reality of all of these concerns, whether there was something worthy enough to change what we had done, I realized that there's so many unknowns, That's so much of what we do when we're starting something new. So when I looked at the traffic issue, the question about the traffic, and I looked at what we already allow in our rural residential areas, daycare centers, cottage industries, etc. I just couldn't believe that there would be more traffic generated by marijuana production than some of these other commercial uses that are already. Like for instance, a daycare. You've got twice a day, 10 parents coming in to pick up their children. Water quality. I was really concerned about that one. And I heard just tonight even, that this is organic materials and the issues that people talked about, water, and it had to be contained. And I feel like the information that I've been told about why this was going to be dangerous to our water quality, or that we hadn't studied it enough, it feels like there has been plenty of regulation around ensuring that the water had to be contained on site. Odor. The Olympic Region Clean Air Agency, I talked to them about what are their odor controls. And every industry has odor controls. We have these things, and there's opportunities for complaints to be made to them. They will come out and investigate those odors. We have standards that were set by the state about what is an acceptable amount of odor, and obviously odor is relevant and subjective. But we do have to create standards around those things. And we do have any business that's found to not meet those standards will be required and compelled to address that. Light pollution. Our Mason County Development Code has light pollution ordinances that have served this community well for many, many years. Property values. I can't argue with what Zillow says, but I've talked to a lot of real estate professionals, and it's true that so many factors weigh into property values and their effects. There is no commodity more elastic than real estate. It's a function of supply and demand more than anything. The proximity to children. I don't know what that exposure does to a child. I truly don't. They felt compelled at the state level to have the 1,000-foot buffer, and then they have definitions of where those buffers have to come from. We can't control where a child's going to go and where they're going to run and what they're going to be exposed to. And I don't know what that means when they walk by. If they walk by a liquor store, what does that mean? Does it mean that they're going to want a drink? If they grow up next to a marijuana production, perhaps it would make them not want to do it. I don't know how we can mitigate against that. And then finally, the crime issue. I believe that the document that's been stated a couple times about, it's been found on the Liquor Control Board website, I believe, that there will be murders and home invasions. I think that's the most irresponsible document coming out of the state I've ever heard of in my life. We don't know that. And to make that assumption based on what an illegal black market would do is irresponsible. And I'm kind of ashamed that that was put out, and I don't know what the origination of that document is. So I looked at those concerns. Then there were the concerns from those following the moratorium. We have invested a tremendous amount of money. We used the process you put out there. And we invested a lot of money, and now you're telling us on a whim that you can't do that. That this value systems around marijuana is what is driving some of the fears and some of the decisions of whether or not it should go in your neighborhood. We decided this was a legal product, and no matter how you feel about it value-wise, we can't zone it for the value of it. We do that with adult entertainment. I'm inclined, and I need to hear from you, I'd like to have a discussion with the other commissioners about this. I'm inclined to lift the moratorium for the 90-day period to allow the people who have followed the rules that we had set out in November to be able to get their processes in place and be able to get vested. If they're serious enough about it, they will do that. I called the Liquor Control Board and talk to them about what is left in this process. It is true, there are people that are going to be put on hold probably for a year. They're slowing down. This is kind of the happy medium for me between all the fears and what we had thought we had, people following the rules that we had set back in November. And allow the opportunity for the public that now is wanting to have some controls around this to weigh in on it. I don't know how lifting that moratorium would change that process for you to be able to come in and talk to us about how should this regulation be changed. It just means that those people that are currently have an application with the state trying to follow what the county said was the way we wanted it done, would get an opportunity to still realize what their investment and what they would bring, their business plan, and still have the opportunity for us to look at our zoning regulations and change it for those in the future.
Commissioner, we have a moratorium in place right now that was brought forward without nothing in writing, unlike what we have, no public thing beforehand that was created by Commissioner Schultz. I'd like to have him to defend his position, why he wants the moratorium before I speak, and tell me why I should
say what you're going to say, Randy.
I just did, Commissioner, go ahead.
You want to put words in my mouth?
No, go ahead.
Please don't. You want to assign some kind of motives to me? I'm not interested in that. If you have a public statement, make your public statement. Please. There's a process we go through.
Yeah, would not
I'll speak. Go ahead. I'll speak if you want. If you won't, I'm fine. I'm fine with my position. I'm fine with defending what I do. I've been an elected person in this county for 10 years. I've been to 500 of these meetings. I'm happy to sit here and tell you what I think. If you want to wait till I speak and then you can speak, sure, go ahead. I'm not going to play politics with you. But I'll tell you right now, the basis of the problem here is an initiative and not an RCW. That's been very difficult to deal with because we've done it with the liquor initiative as well. A lot of problems because it didn't go through the legislature and have the give and take of committee hearings and public input. And that's my belief. But where we are now, I think that I should have been able to see a document. We have something here that I saw at 6 o'clock. It was developed yesterday. It was not passed out to the public, and it was not given to the press, the news media. They had no knowledge of what was there. So I was not here for about 2 hours yesterday. I'm sorry I attended a meeting with the at Squaxin Island. And I think I should have been informed and given a chance to review it or perhaps ask our attorneys questions about it. So I did. Okay, I can understand that. That's fine. I think the Mason County voters did vote, and one person said tonight, over 55% for Initiative 502. But I don't think they voted for a marijuana processor or a grower to locate next door to them. I think there's great potential for their property values to fall. I think there's great potential for their quality of life to be changed. I think that rural residential means that. It's rural, but it's residential. It's not commercial. I think that in reading the ordinance that was adopted by the two commissioners, not by me, I was not here that day, I expressed previously to that adoption some very grave concerns I had about where the retail operations would be located. In this ordinance, the retail operations are located in just about every crossroads and hamlet that you have here in Mason County. And you're going to have, I think, 5 of them. 1 in the city of Shelton and 5 outside. I think that this will be duplicated when the retail operations begin, because that will create high traffic, perhaps in the neighborhood, which has had a relatively docile, quiet neighborhood. So I think that's going to be a problem as it comes up. So I would like to continue to review this. I think that this has been an interesting hearing, a lot of differences of opinion. A lot of people from out of town, which I support. That's fine. Come to Mason County and express your opinions and buy property and get into business. But I think that we have to respect the people that are here and their property values, as I said, and their lifestyle, and that it has to be compatible. And I think that's what makes quality of life, when you're compatible with your neighbor. And I think there's some concern about that. So that's my spiel. Thank you.
Okay. First off, I want to start with the letter to the editor. Normally I don't usually get involved in that, but I thought about it for a minute, and if it was done politically, cool. But if it was done because the person actually believed that I voted against them for Forbidden Farms, I'm sorry, because we let you down again, because there was no vote for Forbidden Farms involved in any way, sense, or form in what happened a few weeks back on that moratorium. Forbidden Farms had nothing to do with it. They were not touched by any of this motion, by any motion, any moratorium. They were exempted from that. So there was no vote for them against somebody else. The only thing there was a vote for the process and to do it right and the way it's supposed to be done and the way it was done. And the idea that we could do it again. One of the first things that I want to clarify is we so easily throw out there residential. And as I explained earlier, it's not that simple in Mason County. We are residential everywhere. Even if you place it in industrial. I'm going to give you just an example. Up in Belfair, in the industrial zone, you've got houses all around that industrial zone. As a matter of fact, 600 feet from that industrial land, 600 feet, you have a housing development of over 70 homes called Riverhill. It's just right there. So even on industrial land itself, commercial, retail, we have homes already on some of those. So what dictates and what creates a neighborhood? When we went through the process and we listened to everybody and we had everybody attend, we went through the process. I was against having it on 5 acres. But you know what happened? I listened to the people that showed up, and I listened to the people that talked, and they won my vote over to where I changed that. And that's part of the process. Whether we like it or not, that is how it works. And so now I'm sitting here with a situation where I'm looking at this, and I know I went through a process with them. And I know that they showed up, and you saw tonight, they're not an uneducated bunch of people that are showing up. And as a matter of fact, I think that last hearing we had on it, there was even more lawyers and stuff here that covered every aspect of it for every question that came up. I know we had one person from Belfair that was here to speak against allowing them in residential areas. I know that for a fact because she told me. And then she proceeded at the end of the meeting to stand right up there and tell us that she had changed her mind because she heard the answers from these people that showed up. That's why there's a public hearing, the public process, of which we had many. And so again, I want to make clear, it's not so simple to call it residential. No matter where you put it, there's people already living there. So we have to decide what residential is. And I'm thinking, even with this process, you're going to have an opportunity to hit a reset button and to get another chance to testify. That doesn't happen very often. But you are going to be given a chance to look at some of the options and give your weight to the Planning Commission and then give your weight to the Commission, because that's how the process goes. The last thing we do as a process is decide and throw moratoriums on from here because of the wide-ranging impacts it has on everybody else. We're not even taking that into consideration. Being knee-jerk and being trying to cover for people that are upset at us right now is not how we need to legislate. It was said to us over and over again in emails and stuff like that that we're doing this for people that don't live in Mason County. That's not correct, first of all. As you've heard over and over and over again, many of these people are in Mason County. But even if they're not, that property owner who might be leasing it is Mason County. Or that property owner who might be selling it is Mason County. But even if they're not from Mason County, I don't have the luxury of deciding rules and regulations on whether or not you live here. I have to make my rules and regulations according to whoever comes in. That's the only fair thing to do. Now, little thing I wanted to cover, Tom had mentioned about I don't need to apologize and stuff, and I did apologize the last time. And the reason why I apologize is because there were some mistakes made, and one of the mistakes I want to tell you is not that we didn't do the process. I need to clarify that. We did the process. We did it right. We listened. And I had my mind changed a little bit. But one of the mistakes that occurred is we had a misunderstanding. I had a misunderstanding, I believe Commissioner Jeffries at the same time, that we thought that because we were talking about rural commercial, that there was a 10,000 square foot limit. When we found out, like when you brought that to us, that there was 30,000 going in, I got to admit, it shook all of us. It shook me because we didn't realize that's what was going to happen. That was one of the mistakes that occurred. But you know, you're taking a lot of information. You do the best you can, and it's not the staff's fault. It was our fault, my fault, because I somehow put the two together, assuming that rural commercial it would go over to rural residential, you know, at least, because you'd think it'd be even stricter on size restrictions. But it wasn't. Somehow that was a loophole that it dropped through. You know, we're talking about a lot of different concerns. First of all, I want to point out nobody on your side that didn't show. That's not your mistake. And I'm not saying that. You don't have to show. But if you choose to show, that's where you have an input. If you choose not to, then you choose not to have an input. But you're not wrong by not showing. That's your choice. Now, we've had a lot of things that we've talked about the things that could happen, as was discussed earlier. I am a realtor, and I can tell you right now, Zillow is about as unreliable as you could possibly imagine for doing a property value, and nobody would take it off it. The county wouldn't take it off it, and no realtor would sell off it. It just doesn't work that way. And the sad part is, on that Zillow, I can assure you that even if somebody sells a house, they were in that process for probably 30 days beforehand. And then if an appraisal system comes on, mass appraisal, they're taking a much larger area than your community on a mass appraisal like Zillow. You know, we're taking a huge area of it. So although your property values may have gone down, I can assure you there's a lot of other factors that have nothing to do with that place on Sells Road. As a matter of fact, the world didn't know about it until a month or so ago, right? Now, when the world found out about it, I can assure you it takes too long to sell a home, close a home, and have it closed for less to have an effect on Zillow or your pricing. There's just no way that's possible. Now, we went through a process, and all these people, good, bad, or indifferent, from Mason County, not from Mason County, came in based on what we did because we said you can do this under this process. We gave them our word when we set this forward, and there's a process to fix it. But a moratorium is not the process to fix it, because what that did, again, I mentioned earlier that somebody seemed to think I voted for Forbidden Farms against them. There was no vote for Forbidden Farms. And with that being said, I can assure you that the only people we hurt in this process, or affected in this process, was not the one that they were mad at. We only affected the innocent person that had nothing to do with this. And you may have agreed or may not like the zoning. Cool, I'm there with you. Let's put it through the process and do it the right way. But here's the bad part. If we go off of just perceived issues without true proof, just having words and stuff like that, we can say all that stuff, but without the proof, can I literally be expected to take that and respect Deb's property rights and her ability to use what we already told her, take away her? She's not a criminal. She's doing it legally. I cannot take away her rights that we've already created. We can go through a process and change the zoning as the process demands. And what I'm asking you to consider tonight as an audience and for ourselves is that we go back and do the process as it was supposed to have been done. The moratorium is a very dangerous thing. The impacts, as you heard from some of these people, were huge. And you may not care that it affected their lives, but remember, that it affected their lives and they weren't doing anything illegal. They were doing a legal business, a legal job, a legal thing set up as we said. Getting a phone call from somebody with their, I don't know if they even heard it, the $20,000 life savings that they put up on a piece of property. The wife is pregnant and they've lost it all if we didn't, by doing this. We don't have that right. They didn't do anything wrong. You know, this had other effects other than other businesses that couldn't open in North Mason or whatever. I got a phone call from somebody who wanted to do multifamily. You were here for the zoning on this today. Multifamily residential to get the tax breaks. I got a phone call from somebody that was looking to do that in Belfair. They had a place picked out. They were getting ready to go through the process to do it. I got a phone call and I was asked, if the neighbors don't want low-income housing next to them and they get mad and come in here, can the commission put a moratorium on it? And I said, I don't think that would happen. But they said, that's not what I asked you. Can they? Well, you know, before this happened, I never would have even considered that as a possibility. But I had to say yes, so I'm not going to lie to them. And they said they're done. That's other businesses, other things that are affected by it. Just not that it's not good to keep it out of RR5. What's not good is to do it the way we handled it in such a knee-jerk reaction and put ripples through our whole economy. That's going to hurt our business economy for many years to come. Because can they depend on us, even to build a home? They have to be able to depend on us. But there is a process, and I'm hoping that we go ahead and we go through that process. And as you saw, RR is there everywhere. Even when Green Diamond changes and takes it out of their commercial timber, RR5 is underneath all that. That's the way our county works. So just to call it because it's RR, we have to find a better way to handle it. And if you heard what we were reading, you'd find that there's some of the things that we would like to look at, taking in density and stuff like that. There is probably a better way to do it. But we have to go through a process to do it. We cannot do that. And you heard it said earlier, we cannot change the code here. It has to go through the planning commission. It has to go through a public hearing. It has to come here. It has to go through a public hearing. And to do it through a moratorium is not the proper. You know, again, I know that there's been a lot of comment about whether or not, you know, the fact that we have this document here that we're already talking about. I want to remind you that on the last one we put together a moratorium, nobody from this other industry was invited. They weren't called and told that this was happening. There was nothing prepared. That occurred 15 minutes before in his office, before he brought it out here. I never saw anything, never even talked about that. That type of restriction on everything was done just on the fly, right then, right there. This was done in a public meeting yesterday, We spent, as a matter of fact, it was a 2.5-hour period from the 10 o'clock to, we left at 12:30 is when we left. 2.5 hours in a public meeting where people can be there or choose not to be there. But we talked about it and came up with this stuff to move it forward the way that it should have been done the first time with the moratorium.
Was that meeting noticed?
It wasn't, what do you mean noticed? It's on our agenda. Again, Commissioner, I'm sorry that you chose to go somewhere else. But that's what happened on the vote too.
Was it noticed?
What do you mean noticed? It wasn't a public hearing.
So that the public knew that it was to be discussed?
It was in there underneath community development, just like we do for all of our briefings.
Just like community development.
That's
So
right.
the public would automatically know it's about marijuana.
Well, no, it wasn't set up like that. You know, this is the hearing. We're having that here. The fact that you weren't there is your problem, Commissioner. I'm sorry. But you chose not to be there, and I wish you had been so we could have had a different conversation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't.
Yeah, please don't. I don't mean to do it for that purpose. I'm just trying to point out that we can't just, please don't, please don't.
The voters.
Yeah, I'm just trying to point out to
How
everybody.
about you stop bickering?
No, that's enough,
Yeah.
that's enough, yes,
Let's just move on with it.
Excuse me. I'm going to finish my conversation. I'm going to try and just point out that there's a process that we have to go through. We didn't go through the process properly when we did it. I want to go through it now. And we should have done it the first time. And with that, I will make a motion. I move that we adopt this ordinance, amending the ordinance 3214, repealing the moratorium and directing the Planning Advisory Commission to make recommendations for code amendments within 90 days.
For the reasons I stated before, I don't believe that this is any kind of hurt. It hasn't already been done. I'm seconding that motion. Discussion?
Is that all?
Moved and seconded. Amend ordinance number 32-44, repealing the moratorium and directing the Planning Advisory Commission to make recommendations for code amendments within 90 days. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
No.
Motion carried.